William Carter stood motionless by the window of the Earth Embassy, watching the endless spill of starlight curve across the distant shell of Nexus Station. The artificial gravity kept his feet firm on polished tile, but his heart drifted somewhere far away, a place where the burden of 15 years as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council hadn't weighed down his bones. This day had haunted his sleep for months. He had rehearsed every possible version of his speech, every possible argument, but none of them prepared him for the ache of finality pressing against his ribs as he stared at the glowing message on his tablet. President Diane Powell's orders could not have been clearer. No room for hope or haggling or careful negotiation. The United Earth government had made its decision. Enough was enough. The message was short 3 lines that closed a door on an era Carter had spent his career defending. He ran his thumb along the edge of the device, reading the words again, as if repetition could dull their impact. He felt the weight of the Earth patch on his jacket, heavier than it had ever been, as if it mourned the ending too. A soft knock interrupted the hush of the embassy. Linda Walsh, his assistant, entered quietly. Her eyes flicked to the tablet, reading the tension in Carter's set jaw and hunched shoulders. "Ambassador, the council session begins in 20 minutes, she said, voice gentle but precise. Is everything prepared? Carter nodded, swallowing the dryness in his throat. Yes, Linda. Is the alert sent? She gave a single, tight nod. All human diplomatic staff across council space received it, sir. They're ready to move on your signal. A silence settled between them, one that held a decade of late nights, difficult negotiations, and shared disappointments. Linda straightened the lines of his uniform jacket, a small gesture, almost motherly. You've done all you could, sir, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Carter managed a thin smile. Let's hope it was enough. He walked the curving corridors of Nexus Station, every step echoing a sense of goodbye. Around him, hundreds of species flowed past, some nodding. Far above the chaos of the council chamber, Susan Blackwell watched it all unfold from the silent glass cocoon of the observation gallery. The roar of 100 languages below became a single blur of panic and anger. She let herself smile grimly, not with triumph, but with the vindication of someone who had warned for years what would happen if the council pushed too far. Her cum buzzed in her ear. How bad is it? President Powell's voice was tight, but steady, carried across. Half a galaxy through encrypted quantum links. Worse than you expected, Susan replied, glancing at her tablet as economic feeds flashed red. The Booveran Trading Consortium looks ready to collapse. 3 minor species are demanding emergency meetings. The council can't agree on anything, not even how to respond. On the floor below, William Carter had already stepped away from the storm, his face calm but pale. Security officers fell in around him, ushering him through the maze of marble corridors, every door slamming shut behind him. For the first time in decades, he felt the ache of exhaustion giving way to something almost like relief. He had said the words, the burden was gone. Across Nexus Station, in the now empty halls of the Earth Embassy, Linda Walsh gave the final command to her staff. Protocol homeward, she said, voice strong. Every terminal flickered as encrypted messages. Reached every human diplomatic outpost in council space. Return to Earth space immediately. Do not delay. No further negotiations authorized. She watched her colleagues, diplomats, engineers, medics back up lifetimes of work in minutes. Some wept quietly. Others just moved, grim and efficient. Alien officials began to gather outside, confusion giving way to panic as they realized the embassy's doors were now sealed, the communications network already dark. Linda heard the knock and the pounding, then the shouted pleas in a dozen tongues. She turned away, focusing on her duty, her eyes stinging. Elsewhere, Ambassador Trell of the Venerian Union rushed to the locked entrance, his 6 limbs trembling. "Please," he begged the human guards. "I must speak with Ambassador Carter immediately. This withdrawal, think of the damage. Entire sectors depend on human expertise and supplies." The guards stood firm, polite but unmoved. "Ambassador Carter has already departed for Earth," one said. "The embassy is closed. All communications will now go through official council channels." Trell sagged, defeated. He had argued for years against the council's arrogance, warning that they underestimated humans at their own peril. Now the cost was plain. He pressed his palm against the cold metal door, realizing for the first time how utterly alone his people truly were. Back in her small office, Susan Blackwell watched the real-time economic devastation sweep across the galaxy. The markets were. In free fall worlds they had spent decades, even centuries, relying on human infrastructure, now faced the terrifying prospect of sudden isolation. She flicked a switch, connecting to Powell's secure line. "It's happening," she said, quietly. "The council thought they could control us. They never imagined we would actually walk away." Powell's answer was quiet, resolute. "Return home, Susan. Phase 2 begins now." Susan lingered, just for a moment, watching the chaos unfold below. The galaxy had always treated humans like clever pets, useful, but never truly part of the family. Now, as she turned to leave, the truth echoed through every frantic voice in the chamber. The day humans stopped playing along was the day the galaxy truly learned how much it depended on them. On the medical world of Arkelia, the sky was streaked with the flashing lights of emergency transports. Dr. Gregory Hudson watched from the window of his small apartment, bags already packed and transport papers ready. Less than a week ago, he'd been the chief human technician overseeing the Arkelian medical network. Now he was just another visitor waiting for the last shuttle home. Down in the city, sirens never stopped. Even with his windows sealed tight, Gregory could hear the distant wail, a sound that had grown sharper each hour since the Earth withdrawal. A sharp chime rang at his door. When he opened it, 3 Arkelian officials stood on the threshold, their gray skin looking almost translucent under the harsh corridor lights. Anxiety radiated from them. The tallest stepped forward, voice brittle. "Dr. Hudson, please. Our neural interface systems are failing. Major hospitals are losing control. Thousands, tens of thousands, will die if they collapse. You must help us." Gregory's throat tightened. He had known this moment would come. During his last briefing with Earth's diplomatic corps, instructions had been simple. Do not assist without official authorization, no matter how desperate the plea. Earth's position had to be absolute. He saw the panic in the Arkelians' eyes, remembered the way they had often dismissed his advice, the way they had cut corners and ignored upgrades. Now the price was being paid. "I'm sorry," Gregory said quietly. "I warned your government what would happen if regular updates stopped. These systems require human technical oversight." He forced his voice steady, repeating the words. "Drilled into every Earth citizen in council space. All assistance requests must go through official channels." The officials were silent a moment. Their 4 eyes blinked, almost pleading. "But the council cannot reach Earth. There are no channels now." Gregory bowed his head and closed the door. He stood behind it, every muscle tense, listening to the soft sound of their retreating footsteps. He felt like a monster, but orders were orders. Outside, the sirens climbed higher, joining the distant, frantic chatter of medevac pilots on open comms. He turned off the lights, waiting for dawn. On Earth, President Powell stood before a wall-sized display, watching as the ripple effects of withdrawal swept through the galaxy. Red alerts flared on trade networks, medical systems, even simple planetary infrastructure. Her advisors surrounded her, arguing over the next step, some for absolute isolation, others for selective mercy. Powell's voice cut through the noise. We kept our most advanced developments from the Council for a reason. If we show all our cards now, we lose leverage forever. The chief military advisor, General Burke, leaned forward. Madame President, should we respond if the Council threatens force? Powell nodded. Earth Defense Force remains at full alert. If provoked, we have certain surprises ready. She looked to her head scientist, Olivia Bennett, who stood beside a gleaming quantum communication prototype. Olivia, how soon can you implement the new system? 6 months for full coverage, Olivia said. We never shared the manufacturing process with the Council. We can roll it out across human space immediately. Powell's lips curled in a grim smile. Begin at once. The galaxy wanted to contain us. Let them see how well they fare without. U.S. On Arkelia, the hospital lights flickered and faded as Gregory sat in darkness, hands clenched, torn between empathy and duty. He was a healer, and somewhere below, someone was crying for help he could no longer give. The withdrawal was only just beginning, and the true weight of Earth's absence was already grinding down on the galaxy, one desperate plea at a time. Along the ragged borders of human space, the silence was charged full of invisible tension, bristling with watchful eyes. On the bridge of the Earth defense ship Intrepid, Admiral John Miller stood with his hands clasped behind his back, gaze fixed on the tactical display as icons shifted across the holographic map. For a week now, reports of unusual fleet movements had streamed in from every outpost and listening post. The Ilari were gathering warships near the real sector. Miller's jaw tightened as a fresh data burst arrived. 30 confirmed vessels. More en route. Send the latest to Earth Command, he told his communications officer. Looks like the Ilari are about to test the line. Around him, his crew worked with a quiet, taut confidence. No one raised their voice, but everyone knew what was at stake. After the withdrawal, the galaxy's predators would circle, hoping to find Earth exposed. Aboard the Ilari flagship, Commander Dreskor regarded the swirling lights of the real border with arrogant certainty. His orders were simple: contain human influence, prevent their dangerous technology from spreading chaos. Dreskor looked at the reports, outdated projections of human defensive capabilities, and scoffed. They were clever children once, he muttered. Now we show them who rules this space. At the same hour, in the glass-walled heart of Earth's command center, President Powell and her senior staff reviewed the movements with icy composure. General Maria Martinez traced the enemy fleet's path with her fingertip. They call it a containment fleet, she said, voice dry. Officially, they're protecting the galaxy from disruption. Unofficially, it's a show of force. Powell's face was unreadable. Do they think we'll beg to return? Or that they can intimidate us back to the table? She turned to Lisa Franklin, the head engineer. Is Project Firewall ready? Franklin nodded. All border systems are powered, Madame President. The network is invisible until activated. They won't see it coming. Good. Powell pressed a small button on her console. Activate Project Firewall. Authorization. Powell, Epsilon 72. Across. The void, invisible satellites spun to life. Buried on asteroids and deep space stations, dormant arrays hummed, their fields linking into a lattice of defense that had never been disclosed to the Council. Within moments, energy readings spiked just subtle enough to draw the attention. Of Ilari scouts, Commander Dreskor was the first to receive the alerts. Unusual energy signatures, Commander, his science officer reported, tail flicking in agitation. Nothing like we've seen from humans before, Dreskor snorted. Proceed as planned. Their tricks will not stop us. 5 of the fastest. Alari scout ships accelerated toward the human colony at Wolf 359. They crossed the invisible threshold, and alarms erupted. Each ship was caught in a shimmering blue bubble, engines shutting down, every weapon and system locked in standby. On their screens, a message appeared in flawless Alari script. Your vessels have been contained by automated defense systems. No harm will come to your crews if you do not resist. You will be escorted to a holding facility for processing. On. The intrepid, Miller watched the feeds in awe as unmanned human drones shepherded the now helpless Alari scouts. 5 ships captured. No shots fired, a technician said, half in disbelief. Miller allowed himself a rare smile. Send the footage to Earth Command. Let's make sure everyone sees it. President Powell's response was swift and cold. She ordered the footage shared with every major world in the Council. Images of advanced Alari ships, supposedly invincible, captured with ease. The message clear. Earth believes in peace through strength. Powell's voice echoed across the stars. We withheld our most advanced technology out of caution, not weakness. Let no one mistake restraint for incapacity. For the first time in a century, the galaxy saw a line drawn not with fire, but with quiet, unbreakable certainty. And those who would test it learned just how much they had never known about humanity. On the world of Lazara, dusk fell violet and gold over the city's stone towers, but in the shadows below, rebellion flickered to life. In the alleys, and beneath crowded rooftops, rumors had become whispers, whispers had become meetings, and meetings had become action. Kea, once just another weary citizen under Exalari rule, now stood at the heart of a hidden gathering, eyes burning with both fear and hope. In her hand, she held a compact medical scanner alien technology, but of unmistakably human design. She had never seen anything like it until last night, when a stranger had found her in the marketplace and pressed it into her palm. He had called himself Paul Harrison, a merchant on paper, but she saw the glint of secrets in his eyes. When she first accused him of being a human agent, he hadn't denied it. Instead, he'd shown her what the scanner could do: diagnose infection in seconds, track disease no council doctor could treat, save her sister's life. Earth could have shared this with your people years ago, Paul had said quietly. But the Exalari wouldn't allow it. They kept you dependent. Now you can decide for yourselves. Tonight, as Kea passed the scanner from hand to trembling hand, the room filled with gasps and cautious questions. What does Earth want in return? A miner asked, voice wary from years of broken promises. Paul met every eye in turn. Equality, trade, no more overseers, no more artificial limits. If you want to stand with us, you'll stand as partners, not subjects. Word spread as if carried on the wind. In a dozen worlds across Exalari space, secret meetings like this unfolded. Human agents who had lain low for years now moved openly, gifting not just tools and medicine, but hope, blueprints for clean water, seeds for crops that could thrive. In poisoned soil, communication devices that bypassed council monitoring. They asked for nothing but trust and a promise to shape a new future together. As uprisings ignited, the Exalari responded with predictable violence: arrests, curfews, harsh punishments. But the rebellions only grew. On Lazara, Kea led a midnight raid on a government depot, armed not with weapons, but with the scanner, a portable purifier, and a crowd of friends who finally had something worth fighting for. When they freed 100 prisoners from the holding, pens, mothers wept with relief, and children clung to her sleeves. Paul Harrison moved among them, always quiet, always watching. Back in the council's war room, panic deepened. Spy Master Trazel delivered the news with a trembling hiss. The humans are not attacking directly. They are turning our own subjects against us. They're agents. How did they get everywhere? High Chancellor Vexer seethed, slamming a fist. onto the table, blockade the borders, cut off all travel. No human ships must reach our worlds. But Trazel's fear was plain. They never left, Chancellor. They have been here, waiting. And now, they are everywhere. The rebellions surged. Whole planets lit up with resistance, not in the name of conquest, but of possibility. Each time a hospital opened with human technology, or a village received water purifiers that worked at last, loyalty shifted quietly, then with celebration. Old wounds began to heal. Alliances formed where none had been allowed before. The old empire cracked at its roots. And all the while, Earth's message was the same. Partnership, not dominion. Knowledge, not control. For the first time in generations, hope grew faster than fear. The Proxima trading station gleamed like a jewel at the edge of human space, its docking arms busy with vessels of every size and color, banners of a dozen new worlds rippling in the artificial breeze. Inside its main hall, the air was electric, with a sense of possibility that no one, not even the most hopeful among them, would have imagined just a year ago. Adam Rivera, Earth's chief economic architect, paced the length of a long glass table as delegates assembled, his nerves strung. Tight, but his eyes shining. It was Rivera's vision that had shaped the Terran Cooperative, a new alliance that promised prosperity without the old Council's layers of taxes, tariffs, and quietly enforced dependencies. He had seen the moment coming as the Council fractured, and the Exilari's grip crumbled. Desperate worlds were searching for a different path. Now, their leaders gathered here, hungry for something to replace chaos. Representatives of mining colonies, agrarian planets, merchant guilds, and old Council founding worlds all pressed forward with questions. How will we trade without the old clearinghouses? What if the Council tries to punish us? Can we trust the system isn't just another empire by another name? Rivera met each question calmly. There will be no central control, he said, showing them a projection of the new economic framework. Every member world keeps its resources. Technology is shared openly, no more restrictions. Decisions are made by vote, not decree. And no member can force another to comply. As the meeting pressed on, news flickered in from across the galaxy, one world after another, announcing its intention to join. On the collapsed trading floors of the Booveran Consortium, panicked elites watched their fortunes plummet as ships redirected to Proxima, refusing to pay old Council levies. The market algorithms, once so carefully maintained by human techs, began to spiral and freeze. A new order was rising, and no blockade or sanction could stop the flow. Among the crowd, Governor Nickel Winters stood to speak, her voice resonant. And sure, she described Wolf 359, the galaxy's first mixed human-alien colony under the Cooperative's charter. Productivity is up threefold. No one waits for permission to innovate. Instead of hoarding technology, we share and improve it together. For the first time, our children will grow up seeing difference as possibility, not threat. There were challenges, fearful voices who clung to old Council traditions, hardliners who whispered of military retaliation. But most could see that the tide had turned. Even Grand Elder Kinlow, a relic of Council tradition, sent a message of cautious blessing. Change is difficult, but survival is impossible without it. The future belongs to those willing to build anew. By the meeting's end, the Terran Cooperative counted 23 new member worlds miners, healers, artists, scientists, all voting to approve the Soul Accords. As digital signatures flashed across the contract, Rivera exhaled, shaking. Hands with delegates whose people had once barely spoken to one another. They were not only building an economic alliance, but rewriting the very foundation of galactic community. Far above, the collapsed Council's old banners still hung in. Abandoned embassies, faded symbols of a vanished age. Here, In this crowded hall on the rim of human space, the future's blueprint shone on every screen and every face. Earth's sky was blue and cloudless, the day the galaxy gathered to witness a new beginning. The grand meeting hall in New Geneva was transformed, its high glass walls filled with the colors and languages of worlds once divided, now drawn together by necessity and vision. Banners from 72 planets, many never before seen in unity, draped the balconies. Delegates of every shape and origin clustered at long white tables, translators buzzing quietly as they traded stories and laughter. No one called roll. For the first time, presence was voluntary, and every seat was full. William Carter stood at the edge of the stage, watching the crowd with a sense of disbelief and quiet pride. He remembered the echoing loneliness of the council chamber, the icy dismissals, the long struggle to be heard. Today, Earth was not alone far from it. By Carter's side stood President Powell, smiling in the sunlight that poured through the glass. Her hair had gone silver, her posture unbowed. When the chimes signaled the beginning of the ceremony, President Powell took the podium. Her voice was calm, measured, and carried a note of steel that had become legend. Today marks a new chapter for our galaxy. We do not erase the past, but we choose what comes next. The soul accords will bind us not by dominance, but by partnership sovereignty for every world, the free sharing of knowledge, and economic cooperation for the benefit of all. We have seen what happens when we let fear and pride divide us. We know what we can achieve when we build together. The delegates rose in applause, real, spontaneous, full of relief and hope. When the time came for signatures, Carter took the stage, hands only slightly trembling as he scrolled through the digital accords and pressed his thumb to the seal of Earth. One by one, representatives from across the galaxy followed old enemies and new friends, some with tears in their eyes, some with shy laughter. Even Grand Elder Kinlo's withered hand moved with reverence as he signed for his ancient people. High General Kraser of the battered XLR Concordat, watched by all, stood and signed. His voice was gruff. We do not see as you do, but we respect your strength. May this peace last longer than our old grudges. Afterward, as the celebration spilled out into the gardens, Carter found himself on the balcony beside Powell, the sound of music and alien voices rising behind them. For a long moment, they watched ships arrive and depart across the sky. There, hulls shining in the afternoon sun. Powell turned to Carter, eyes bright. Did you ever think it would come to this? Carter smiled, the weight he had carried for decades finally light. We only hoped for respect, Diane. We never dreamed we'd help remake the galaxy. Powell laughed softly, shaking her head. Sometimes you have to walk away to show what you're worth. In the garden, human children chased alien playmates between flower beds. Engineers argued good-naturedly over new designs. Musicians tuned instruments from 3-star systems. The world had not become perfect. Old wounds and old fears lingered in corners, but something true had changed. No longer on the outside, humanity stood at the center of a galaxy, finally learning to choose hope over habit. And as the sun dipped low over the shining city, William Carter understood at last the greatest act of strength had been simply having the courage to walk away and the wisdom to return with open hands.